Yo, what's going on YouTube? It's GZTV again, back with another video, and today we're going to be talking about the fourth episode of the Dahmer Monster Netflix series. This was a really interesting episode. It was like an hour, 3 minutes. It was the longest episode. We will be using a discussion thing from the Decider to talk about it. So shout out to them. I'm kind of just using that as some talking points. This is a pretty big episode. You take a lot in. Which is, and the nice thing about this episode is it's not as graphic. It's not really as disturbing as the other ones. It's still very disturbing, but not as. So we kind of get an intermission. We kind of get a break from all of the nasty shit and all the fetishes and all the fantasies we get out of this guy. So this episode's kind of highlighting how much of a failure Jeffrey was during his late teen years and early 20s. Jeffrey Dahmer's life story is filled with details that get you laughed out of any decent writer's room. He snuck into the yearbook photos at clubs he didn't belong to. The school responded by manually blacking out his face, so he was very secluded from society. Obviously, he wasn't part of the honor society, but obviously them blacking his face just shows how much society hated this guy and how, like, much of an outlier he was, how separated he was from everyone else. After flunking out of college, he joined the army. They trained him to be a medical specialist, and he learned how to drug people, obviously asking questions during the class about these sleep pills and what they can do, how effective they are. It's definitely some red flags sprouting from that right away. And yeah, the fantasies just continue, the temptations just continue for this guy as we roll on into this series. It's a real thing, so I'm not even going to act like this is what exactly happened in real life. There are some very gross, oh my goodness, there are some gross scenes in this episode, but it's definitely a little more calmer. It's a lot more focused on his personal life rather than just using the shock value of a serial killer to just persuade an audience in. After getting booted from the military and moving back home, he went to work at a deli, where he made a living by carving meat and stuffing sausages. After getting fired from the deli for exposing himself at the state fair, which was fucking gross, by the way, he went to work as a phlebotomist at a blood plasma center, and you know how that goes given the failures he's had in his life. This show shows you all of this and more, just kind of adding on to it, and it's a great job. It does a great job at it. So, yeah. Um, the writers aren't above adding black comedy flourishes of their own in the form of foreshadowing dialogue, some of which almost come off like the sick schoolyard jokes about Dahmer heard across the country after his arrest and trial. When Jeff's neglectful dad Lionel and his new girlfriend Sherry, played by Molly Ringwald, this is the first time her character is introduced in the series, or the first time Sherry's introduced, come to visit him the summer after his high school graduation. They discover that Jeff's even more neglectful mother Joyce has disappeared for 3 months, leaving him alone, and Lionel frets about Jeff's health. God knows what you've been eating. He's really worried about his son, even though his son is kind of a failure and doesn't have much to live for right now. He's still worried about him. When Jeff applies to work at the deli, its proud, polished owner tells him this isn't like the job he got simply making sandwiches when he lived in Miami. It's an art to be a butcher. Very monotonously, Jeff is like, never thought about it like that. Some inspiration maybe. When his grandma, played by Michael Learned, which is interesting, with whom he's moved in after his discharge from the army, tastefully hints that he might be gay. The kind of thing church could fix up for him, obviously. He didn't, and that's kind of the Christian beliefs. People aren't as religious as they were back in the day, so this kind of shows you, it just kind of goes to show that concept. I never bring shame on the family like that to be gay, he says. So, when he visits the Wisconsin State Fair at his grandma's encouragement and gets arrested for masturbating in a drunken stupor, he's sporting an old Milwaukee t-shirt, one of the city's most famous exports, advertised by its most infamous. This is one of the most infamous people in Wisconsin history, and obviously not in a good way, so he just has deep Wisconsin roots, I suppose. This was directed by Jennifer Lynch. The episode's called The Good Boy Box. The episode's final scene makes it dreadfully apparent why the episode is called this. The episode is essentially an hour-long litany of Jeff's many failures. Failure being a self-applied label. an outcast and poor student in high school, he becomes even more of both in college. This episode is literally about failure, like, and how Jeff self-diagnoses himself as a failure. And it's really sad to see him go down like this, but obviously, after his crimes, you feel no remorse for this person. His alcoholism gets him booted from the army, and to the extent that it spurred the hallucination of his slain hitchhiker that inspired him to jerk off at the fair from the deli. So he gets just kicked out of everything, and he can't get a win in his life. He's just taking loss after loss after loss. He gets fired from a later job too, and while it's not specified why, his habit of pulling all-nighters in the city's bathhouses with men whom he eventually starts drugging and leaving behind when they fail to regain consciousness probably had something to do with it. He probably got in trouble for that, although it wasn't really closely detailed on the show. I'm sure you can find wiki articles. The internet has all the specifics on this guy. He's one of the most notorious criminals in human history. So, even in the world, like worldwide sense. And while his family supports him in terms of ensuring he has a roof over his head, they can't give him the love he needs, let alone the kind he really wants. He doesn't want familial love. He doesn't want anyone close to him to love him. He wants love from the world. He wants society to take him in and accept him, and that's not something his family can provide. And in the process of him going out and seeking this kind of love, he just can't seem to find it, which is a really sad reality that comes with a lot of kids in society. There's always going to be the outliers. There's always going to be people that, can't make it in life, and they can't fit in, and unluckily, this was a case where it led to very, very unfortunate events, His dad is an asshole, to put it plainly. His mom is MIA. His stepmom seems nice enough, but there's only so much you can do for a kid who's not nuts about having a stepmom to begin with. Like, when they were eating in the diner, he's like, "You're not even my mom. Stop telling me what to do. I don't care what you say. You should not have any input in this. You are irrelevant to me. You just now got introduced into my life, and I don't care." It's pretty much how that conversation went at the diner. Only his grandmother puts in the real time and effort to show him TLC and congratulate him on his on and off sobriety, but she's too old-fashioned and religious for him to really relate to. She's not a person. She's definitely not a person he can relate to. She's very religious. She's against his preferences, which is step number one of being a good grandma, is to cater to your grandchild's needs and stuff, and she can't do that. No one in his family has successfully done that. No matter how hard she tries, no matter how much effort, no matter how much faith his grandma put into him, there was nothing she could do about it. Her grandchild was a serial killer, and again, nothing she could do about it. Church can't fix what's wrong with Jeff, any more than the prison psychiatrist can, who explains that his paraphilia for exposed, shiny, wet organs may be a malfunction of the alleged innate handwriting that attracts men to women's vaginas. That was the dumbest fucking thing. Like, the analogy he made, because obviously Jeff's not gay, so him talking about vaginas was completely irrelevant. It's painful to hear his grandmother recount what a good boy his father was too, given all that, the audience has seen of how his father has treated him. His grandmother, sees the good in every single person, and even how his father acts when his grandmother's not around, she still thinks he's a good person, so... Yeah, she forgives him for blowing up at her, the first such blow-up we're aware of since the one he directed at himself after killing the hitchhiker. This is when the guy just lost it. Jeffrey lost it and took it out on an innocent grandma that just wanted to help. After she discovers and throws out his stolen mannequin, which is not something you can picture Lionel or Joyce so readily doing, but she's just not equipped to handle him. Who is? There's really no one out there that can handle a guy like Jeff. He's a case study. He's been studied in psychological environments, and they just can't find what motivated him to do what he did. He had no motives. He was just evil, and But there are further failures ahead of Jeff too, as is learned during the back half of this episode. We're moved to 1987. Jeff begins to involve himself in Milwaukee's largely underground gay community, which is crazy that that's even like, I don't know, it's kind of crazy. Bathhouses aren't really a thing nowadays, probably because of what happened here, like literally. Um, After getting used to the club scene, he starts frequenting bathhouses where you can rent a room to stay in for a night of sex, and before long gets himself blacklisted from every such joint in town after one of his roofie victims nearly dies. Like, he's literally like setting them up to OD on sleeping pills, like he learned in the military. And one bathhouse owner learned of this, and the ambulance was coming to his club once every couple nights, and he kicked him out and reported him to other of these bathhouses, and he was not allowed to go there anymore, to any of them. Even his second murder is a failure of sorts. After he's been banned from the bathhouses, he's still frequenting the clubs, and he picks up a handsome dude who's great at dancing. Slim, muscular, dancer-style male bodies are his perpetual fascination, if you didn't realize by now. Jeff buys him a room at a fancy hotel and immediately slips the guy a Mickey, only to discover that he mixed up the glasses and drank the drugged booze himself, which is something that's very notorious in his reign of terror. Him, like, accidentally drugging himself was kind of insane, but it actually happened, like 4 years before he got caught. Struggling to stay conscious, he loads up a second drink and manages to get the guy to drink enough of it to pass out too, or at least so it would appear. That's all that's shown on camera as the guy passes out. It's not like Jeff remembers any of it or remembers beating the guy to death in the night. Like, this was accidental. 2 of his kills were apparently accidental, which was shown in the show. Even the pleasures of killing, to the extent he never took pleasure in the act rather than the aftermath, has been denied him. He's never actually wanted to kill anyone. It's really just about what he does with their bodies and his fantasy, But there's still that aftermath to consider. Dahmer shrewdly packs the body into a large suitcase he purchases for the purpose, waits till his grandmother leaves, and deposits it in her basement. He's got skeletons in the closet, quite literally. He dismembers the body while she's at church, but saves the severed head, which he wraps in plastic, kisses, and stores in the box that contained the old photos of his father. Not unlike what he did with the hitchhiker 9 years earlier, whose bone fragments he scattered all over his backyard, so there'd always be pieces of him close by. He wants to remember the victims. He didn't kill out of hate. He killed out of appreciation for the male species, which is still not something to support. I mean, I'm not homophobic, but he killed someone. It doesn't matter, This part of the movie, once he finds the guy dead in the morning, that's when the show makes a dark turn. There are 3 shots from this episode that are pretty infamous, and are going to be infamous for some time. The first is Jeff in the bathroom mirror, covered in blood, accompanied by a menacing sting from the excellent score. Nick Cave and Warren Ellis did great with the score here. The second is the moment where a drunken Jeff raises his cup of beer in a toast to the test of strength at the fair, emblazoned with phrases like He-Man and Good Boy, phrases that mean more to him than anyone could have ever known. The third, probably obvious, is when he kisses the severed head through the plastic at the end of the episode. The man he murdered is now his keepsake, his secret, and many more men and boys will die before the secret is out, so yeah, that's kind of that. Leave a like, comment, and subscribe. That's all I have. Usually these are 14 to 15 minutes long. That's kind of the standard. Yeah, I'm probably going to work on some homework for a little bit and then return for a Switch stream where I'm listening to new music. Yeah, great music